Welcome to another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. This is a podcast dedicated to educating and empowering women from preconception, pregnancy, birth, and through early motherhood on wellness lifestyle. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and I'm a maternity pediatric chiropractor and mother who has hand-selected experts in natural holistic healthcare specialties to shine light on options and choices during this exciting phase of a woman's life. And today I had the honor and privilege of interviewing Dr. Jessie Hehmeyer, and we spent most of the podcast discussing 3 ways to support your mood and your hormones following the arrival of your babe. We also delved into just root cause resolution and functional medicine and really how you have the power to heal your body. Dr. Jessie Hehmeyer is a physician founder of Well Empowered, where she practices data-driven, outcome-oriented functional medicine. She created Well Empowered with one commitment in mind, guiding you to create the health and vitality that transforms your experience of life and alters what is possible for you. How does Dr. H live true to this? By taking a root cause natural medicine approach. Through working one-on-one with groups or in delivering corporate webinars, Dr. H provides the information, inspiration, and strategies needed to produce sustainable and transformative health outcomes. Dr. H earned her Master of Science in Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine from the University of Western States, her Doctorate of Chiropractic from National University of Health Sciences, and a Bachelor of Arts from UCLA. She is an IFM certified practitioner, a licensed dietitian nutritionist, and a certified nutrition specialist. In her spare time, you will find Dr. H with her husband, Chris, doing yoga, hiking, strength training, traveling, or preparing a beautiful, healthy meal for loved ones. Hi, Dr. Hehmeyer. Welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with you today.
So this is always fun to talk to a colleague, a fellow chiropractor who also is very interested in nutrition, functional medicine, and supporting women's health. And you've made now your entire career functional medicine.
That is correct. That is correct. So yes, we both share the fabulous foundation of chiropractic education. And when I went to chiropractic school, I had every intention of living in the physical medicine realm. But somewhere in the middle, I had an aha moment, right? That I could shape shift the trajectory of that degree and emphasize more the natural internal medicine aspect of our training. And then on top of that, went on to get my Master's of Science in Nutrition and Functional Medicine. So ever since my license arrived in my hands, I have been living in this functional medicine world.
And what's cool about that is you can live anywhere. You're not dependent on a brick and mortar space, which definitely was an issue for a lot of hands-on healers at the beginning of the pandemic, right? You can help people virtually and have freedom to live where you want and lower overhead too.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I will say out of the gate, none of that was on my radar when I made that choice. Like absolutely, it has been proven to be a side benefit. But like hands-on healers, I too was in the office until March 2020. I had a few weeks of practicing working remotely. But it really was, I was pretty much in the same boat as everyone else.
It was a learning curve.
It was a learning curve. Now, of course, there is the advantage that, when I work with people, the interventions I use for me, the role that I play don't involve, physical touch. Now I will frequently refer the people who I work with to others, but yeah, that's not an aspect of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what I think, what I love about the philosophy of chiropractic is we're really interested in root cause resolution, and there's multiple ways to help support that. And so the avenue you've taken is really helping people discover what's causing their symptoms and addressing it through diet and supplements, referrals for hands-on, practitioners, other holistic therapies, like helping them shape a plan that's individualized and custom for their body. And I also, from what I was reading on your website, you're really also addressing the psychology behind how they got to this state of sickness, right? Because we know that there's belief systems that also created that. And if you want to get out of it, you have to live a different life and a different belief system, or you're just going to keep creating illness and sickness.
Very well said. Absolutely. Very well said. And, we all were kind of, born into and inherited a way of relating to our health and a way of relating to, when things happen that require attention. There are aspects of it. I'm a big believer in don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but there are big pieces of it that just simply put aren't serving people, right? The way people relate to their body, the way people relate to, food. And of course, the old paradigm that really looks at healthcare as more of like an authoritarian dynamic, right? Someone does something to you rather than a collaborative partnership that together, creates the healing path forward.
That's so true. And when people are essentially going to their doctor and saying, fix me, they're giving their power away. And they're really not also taking responsibility for how they got there in the first place, right? And that goes back to lifestyle. So I even say to people when they come in, for chiropractic care, I'm only spending a very small amount of time with you helping to support your body in its healing. And everything else you do outside of my office is also impacting your body's ability to heal, either positively or negatively. So, it's all about educating people so they understand how they can do better and support the innate intelligence of the body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And, there is, speaking again about the paradigm people are born into, right? There, it's a bit of like learned helplessness, right? And so just like you're sharing how you interact with your patients, right? Allowing them to see, no, really, you have so much power. You have so much power and say about how your health goes and therefore how your life goes, right? Because to me, it really lives like like a truth, like gravity that, our health and vitality is foundational to living the life we intend. Right. And so just taking that perspective and stepping into a new journey that honors that truth and seeks to engage in what does it look like for me to be healthy and what resources and support and information will be required for me based on where I am at this point in my journey to progress.
Right. And I think what's so cool about the healing process is it is like layers of the onion, right? So as you're peeling back things, some other things might show up, and that's really a blessing because it just means that you're really going deeper to even deeper root causes, right? Because there's usually more than one root cause, and then eventually we're resolving all of them, but probably not all at the same time either, right? So there's like a process to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I spoke with a woman earlier today who, she was someone who came to the conversation very self-aware, but also with a really complex health history. And it was our first, conversation to look at working together. And one of the first things I said was, there are going to be many puzzle pieces to your healing journey, right? I'm confident you can heal, and I'm not the only solution. It would be a pleasure to be one puzzle piece in this journey. And, we started to talk about what would be other aspects of her healing journey and what resources would we draw upon to support her.
Yeah, definitely. And it all works together in supporting the healing, especially something that's more chronic, long-standing, can, take more time and also require multiple, like a team approach. And the team isn't just one practitioner and the patient, it's multiple practitioners working together.
Yes, definitely. All the great toolkits. We've got lots of great toolkits. Not one of us has every tool in a toolkit, right?
Yes, right.
So finding those who have the tool that the person in front of us would most likely benefit from.
So, back to relationship with food and psychology and like even helping people like change the way they're eating or the way they're moving or the way they're thinking does require some tools for the subconscious mind and essentially addressing those belief systems. And there's also so many of those out there. And what I love is I find that certain people or personalities resonate with certain psychological tools. And I'm not talking about meds, and I'm not even really always talking about talk therapy, but like an EFT or a Psych K, some of these types of things. We recently brought Brain Tap into our office. These types of tools are very empowering for essentially addressing limiting beliefs and old subconscious patterns from early childhood and then changing those, right? Like, oh, my whole family ate this way, right? And so that's why I eat this way. And recognizing, well, how do I change? How do I do different? Like, it can be overwhelming for somebody. So how do you help them find what tools are best for them?
Definitely, it part of the journey is getting to know someone and trying things out, right? So, um, to begin with, to even define what that journey is, one of the exercises I engage with people on is what I call creating your vision of vitality. And said another way, it's a process of getting very clear on your intention for your health in your life. So very, very fundamentally, what does it mean for you to thrive? What does vitality and health feel like for you? What's it like to walk around in this world, in this future, with your health as you desire and intend it occur, right? And really getting people engaged in that looking and that creation. And, so starting with that intention. So once people are very clear on their intention for their health and their life, then we start to look at, okay, what's the next step forward? Right. So, when I work with people, I do provide them with, I call them fulfillment exercises, but it's a variety of, we could call it homework. And it's everything from listening to a podcast or reading a brief blog, or maybe I'll put together a meditation for them or a brief, yoga session for them. So I'll incorporate a lot of different things. To your point, looking at how can we access different ways of healing, right? Some of it is, oh, I just didn't understand that. And now that I understand the why, right? Maybe I'm providing them a blog on insulin, for example. And that's very heady, right? It's very much in the brain. But once they get that piece of information, they're able to take new action, because for that person, they need to know the why before the what, right? And then for someone else, maybe it is something that is more gathering insights, right? I have three brothers, and we joke that we were raised brunch. My dad was raised Jewish. My mom was raised Catholic, and we were raised brunch. So, I've always been interested in different, philosophies, and Buddhism has always been something that's resonated with me, because it really works with any religious belief, right? So sometimes I'll be providing people with different distinctions of Buddhism that are really more spiritually based, but help people understand how they work in a way that they're able to access new actions, right? To create new actions that align with the future they intend, that move them towards that health and vitality, that they're now very clear is their idea of thriving.
Yeah, that is beautiful, because we're creatures of habit, and we do kind of go through our motions day in and day out, sometimes without really being conscious of what we're eating and how we're moving and even the thought process in our mind. And so I think it's beautiful that people are really sitting down and taking time to look at, what am I doing? Because what you're doing is how you got there in the first place, right? Even Einstein said, like, if you want something different, you got to do it different. You can't just do the same thing over and over again and expect different results.
Yes, only new actions produce new outcomes, right? And so it's so simple, and yet I think each of us has our own areas where that connection comes more naturally than others, right? Some people they knock it out of the ballpark with their career when they're 22 years old and they just hit the ground running. And others, it takes longer to find their stride. Some people, it's like that in relationships, right? And others, it's like that in finance, and others, it's like that in health. So knowing that, our ability to really get, and by get, I mean live that truth that only new actions produce new outcomes, you probably already get that, so to speak, in a different area of your life, right? Which is great.
Right.
So now we just need to borrow that wisdom and apply it to this area of your life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So today I wanted to really speak to the new mamas out there who recently gave birth and are really looking for ways to heal and recover after the pregnancy and birth process. So I'm excited to hear what you have to share about ways that a postpartum woman specifically can help support her mood with the baby blues or postpartum depression, anxiety, which are very, very common. And that connection with their hormones and the hormonal changes that have obviously been occurring over the past few months prior and even at that point.
Yeah. So, yes, before I dive into this, I'm going to say a little bit about that scenario you just beautifully painted. And that is, I just want to acknowledge that every woman who has just given birth has a different experience, right? Some people, birthing their child was the most beautiful thing they've ever done, right? Some women, they sneeze their babies out. One of my sister-in-laws, 3 nieces, I swear to God, she sneezed them all out. It's unbelievable. And she's like the size of a peanut, right? And then for other women, that is so far from the truth. Like, just hearing that story makes them cry because it was so far from their truth, right? So I just want to acknowledge that every woman out there, totally fine whatever your experience was with having a child. And I invite you to really honor your truth, whatever that truth may be. And I do believe for some women who are, struggling on the other side of having a child, honoring that truth and, resisting the urge to put on a happy face about it if that's not your truth. There's something about that, like really just owning your truth and not as a way to, stick your feet in cement and not move forward, but as a way to move through it. And so just knowing
process the pain, right?
Exactly. Process the pain. Right. So there are a lot of different ways that can be done. And again, for many, many women listening, that won't be their truth. And that's okay too. But looking at, how do we support hormones and how do we support energy after giving birth to a child? There are a few foundational aspects that I'd point to. For anyone who I'm working with, I'm always going to want to get labs because then I can be more targeted. But there are common, recurring aspects that we can act on that will support mood, that should support mood over time. So one of them is, simply put, making sure your B vitamins are plentiful. And so for women postpartum, if you don't have the opportunity to go get your labs done, get yourself on a high quality B complex, especially if you're dealing with a little postpartum depression. And by high quality B complex, there are many great options out there. A few guidelines I'll give you to be able to assess, is this a quality B complex? One is, you want to look at your B12. And you want to make sure it's the methylated version. So methylcobalamin for B12, we like that. For folic acid, we want it to say folate. We don't want folic acid. We want methyl tetrahydrofolate, right? Long word, but just remember the methyl part. You'll get that, right? So those aren't the only things I might look for in a quality B complex, but that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, I feel like if the complex has the 2 methyls, then you're good.
Absolutely. Right. We could get nitpicky, but that's a really, really good place to start. So,
because it's also rare, like you're not going to find that at your local CVS pharmacy.
Correct. And even at, your Whole Foods or fancy schmancy health store, you don't want to take it for granted, right? They will oftentimes have, other versions that you and I are
So you
not
have
big
to read
fans
the
of. Yeah.
label. Yeah.
Exactly. So yes, that on top of your prenatal, that is one thing I definitely recommend. And you know what that's going to do, not only will that support the production of energy, aka ATP, it also supports the production of healthy neurotransmitters. It also supports detoxification processes, which, as you know, all of our hormones go through our detox pathways. Guess what's wackadoodle after giving birth? Your hormones, right? So making sure you have what you need to sufficiently effectively process those hormones, definitely going to be on your side. One thing I want to make sure women know, I sometimes I forget to say this, and then people can get a little bit freaked out. Your urine will likely be bright yellow, like neon. Nothing is wrong, right? B vitamins are water soluble, so you will excrete excess in your urine, and that will make really bright colored urine. It's okay, right? So that's one thing is definitely replenishing those B vitamins to support your mood and your energy and your hormones.
So even, sorry to interrupt, a high quality prenatal is not going to have enough of the B vitamins.
Often not, and definitely for a woman who already is in a place of struggling.
Got
Right.
it.
If someone is struggling, I would layer a B complex on top of it. So if someone wasn't, then I would
probably just the prenatal. Yeah.
Exactly.
And your prenatal needs to have that methylated folate and methylated cobalamin as well.
That is correct. Exactly. That is correct. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, the next thing that I would say for someone who's dealing with postpartum blues, postpartum depression is making sure your omega-3s are really hearty. Again, this is something that can be tested in a blood test, but in the absence of that, hopefully you had some omegas in your supplement repertoire while pregnant. But in this case, right, if you're dealing with some mood, swings postpartum, then I would recommend doing a standalone omega-3. And by that, I'd like to see between the active omega-3 ingredients, which are EPA and DHA, I'd like to see at least 1,000 milligrams of those combined, right? So if you look at the back of a supplement, you'll be able to look at, okay, omega-3 fatty acids, how much of the EPA do I have and how much of the DHA do I have? Nordic Naturals, great brand, certainly not the only great brand, but one great brand. But it can be a little tricky because even, I know Whole Foods, even at least a couple of years ago, they had a product that said 1,000 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids. And when you looked at the back and you added up EPA and DHA, it was 400.
So wow.
Yeah. And then the other omega-3s, that was the other 600. We don't care about the other omega-3s. We care about the EPA and DHA. Right?
So let's talk about that, because during pregnancy, they want to see higher levels of the DHA, and that's for the fetal neural tube development. Now, a woman's given birth. Do we want to see higher levels of EPA or to the DHA? Like, does the ratio matter?
So I would say not super duper. I'd like to see, typically what you'll see is about 600 EPA and about 400 DHA in that situation of 1,000 milligrams. And the great thing about that is, okay, so EPA is anti-inflammatory. We know inflammation wreaks havoc on our neurotransmitters. So if there's a little extra inflammation going on in your body after giving birth, that will be helpful. The other thing is that EPA allows for entrance of DHA past the blood-brain barrier, which is where DHA works its magic, both, in the sense of, growing fetus, but also in, adults and humans that are fully formed, right? That's where DHA is most powerful, is in our central nervous system, but EPA actually gives it access to our central nervous system. And of
course, 1,000 milligrams enough?
1,000, 1,200. I'm hesitant to recommend something like 2,000 without having numbers.
Without the blood.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably very low risk, but I tend to be on the conservative side, and typically 1,000 to 1,200 will get the job done. Now, definitely, incorporating omega-3 rich, low mercury foods in your diet, we definitely want to do that as well, right? So, wild caught salmon, things like Arctic char. And if you'll do sardines, great. Things like that. So, finding ways to work those in your diet 3 to 5 times a week, kind of trending more towards 5 times a week if you're dealing with some mood stuff for sure.
And what about a vegan?
Yeah, I mean, the vegan's tricky, right? Because you can do it in supplement form, and I understand people are vegan for different reasons. In the vegan, you want to take that supplement and same thing, add up the EPA plus DHA and take enough so that you're getting at least 1,000 milligrams between the EPA and DHA. And
That's from algae?
Yeah, exactly. And so the supplements that I've looked at with that, when I have worked with women who are vegan, you're looking at about 12 capsules a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a very high dose. And where this gets a little confusing is that, these other omega-3 fatty acids, right? EPA and DHA are the active forms of omega-3 fatty acids. And the other forms of omega-3 fatty acids that are found in algae or chia seeds or hemp or flax, right? The plant-based omega-3 fatty acids have to go through this conversion that our bodies are just not very good at doing. So,
especially if they're already inflamed.
Exactly. Bingo, bingo, bingo. So certainly if you're vegan, I am all for making sure you're getting that flax and chia and hemp and, algae in your, seaweed, right? Sort of thing. But by itself, it's just in my experience that is insufficient to get you where you want to be, right? Both in the total amount of omega-3s and ultimately the impact we're looking for, which is supporting your mood.
Right. And then also you can easily test that on the blood work pre and post and see if the needle's moved. So it's interesting. I do find sometimes when I'm working with patients, because if it's a health related issue, they might not eat salmon, but they'll take fish oil supplement, short term because they recognize this is what my body needs and this is about my health. And I'm not going to eat fish, but I'm going to just pop this soft gel back.
Yeah. And that's fine, right? Everybody's got what they're willing to do. And I appreciate that, right? Sometimes I have met vegans who have said, okay, I don't want to take all these supplements and it's not a religious thing and it's not an environmental thing. And, it's not even really that I love animals. I started doing it because my cousin does it or whatever, right? And then they'll make their way to introducing, animal-based products in there, and then they'll be able to, pull off some of the supplements, right? Mm-hmm. But yes, a big part of it is definitely meeting people where they are, but just going back to, okay, let's remember, no new outcomes without new actions. So supplements, fine. Food, fine. Combination, fine. But if we want new outcomes, this is one of our pillars to get there.
It's interesting. And even as we're talking about the vegan diet, B12 is also a common deficiency. So, and I don't personally eat meat, but I do eat fish. And so I can recognize you need to really know what your body needs and really listen to it. And when I was pregnant, I did do bone broth because that's really what my body needed during that stage of my life. So, and it's okay to change and, you don't have to, it's nice to really touch into what your body's needs are at that moment and respect that.
I completely agree. I don't think there's much usefulness in being dogmatic. It's funny hearing, I'm sure you hear this all day long when people say, oh, do you believe, right? Do you believe in intermittent fasting? Do you believe in as if it's a religion, right?
Do you believe in chiropractic?
Right. Exactly. It's well, I what I know is that certain things get outcomes. So it's not like a belief thing. It's not, tooth fairy or, something like that. Yeah. So, and even when it comes to nutritional approaches, just like you're saying, different things are right at different times. Right? Knowing what's right when, that's wisdom. And being flexible with that is important.
It really is. And I have to say, I really really, really saw that firsthand when my son started eating solids. And I was reading a book about how to introduce healthy solids to your, infant. And they were sharing a study about how they would put foods in front of these infants and let the baby just pick. And the baby was picking the foods that were high in the nutrients that that baby needed at that moment. So it was completely like, oh, I need some more vitamin A, so I'm going to eat this piece of carrot, right? Or I need some more iron, so I'm going to grab some of this grass-fed beef. So, I mean, we're the same as adults. We don't lose that ability. We just turn it off sometimes and ignore it. But when our body has those cravings, there's a reason why we're craving certain types of foods.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that actually leads me to the next thing I would really encourage, your listeners who have recently delivered a child or will soon be to step into, and that is eating for blood sugar stability, right? And why that ties into what you're saying is when our blood sugar is out of whack, our cravings are wise cravings. Well, they're wise in the sense that our body's trying to find its way back to norm, right? It's trying to find it, but they're not helpful, right? They're not helpful in the sense that they're not contributing to our health, right? And so how we can get ahead of that is by eating for blood sugar stability. And it doesn't need to be super complicated. What it might look like is making sure you're getting about a palm-sized portion of protein at every meal, right? Not going overboard on the simple carbohydrates. That doesn't mean never have any, right? But that means, okay, being mindful of the total amount of those low fiber carbs, things like white potatoes, pastas, bread, rice. And, I fully appreciate when adrenals are stressed, as oftentimes is the case, not always, but oftentimes for new moms, those quick sources of fuel, which is simple carbs, right? That, first of all, they're easy, right? And second of all, they do give a temporary boost through the, sugar, basically.
Glucose,
right?
yeah.
Exactly. And so it can seem like that's the solution, but if you can just break that cycle for 3 days, oh my goodness, you will be in such a better place, right? If you can eat in a way that, okay, you're getting some protein, you're getting some high fiber carbs, you're getting some nice colors on your plate rather, in a couple of days, you'll find yourself more stable, both in the way of energy as well as in the way of mood.
Right, because those also tend to go together, right? Like if you're really depleted and exhausted, then that's going to also impact energy and mood.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing about that too is, when we're on the blood sugar roller coaster, which is essentially when we keep spiking our blood glucose, right? We eat the simple carbs or, things that are obviously sugar, right? Our blood sugar goes up really quickly. Our body doesn't like that. We produce a lot of insulin in order to handle the situation. Our blood sugar now takes a nosedive, and then we produce a lot of cortisol so that we can release glucose into our body and right the ship, right? And guess what? Every time we do that, we deplete our body of those B vitamins too, right? So, if we can eat for blood sugar stability, we're actually going to reduce our body's need for B vitamins because it's just less stressful.
Right. It almost is back to that cave woman, like you're starving, your body feels like it's starving. And that's going to create some panic. Like, oh my God, I don't have access to food, which is not typically true in today's world, but
Right.
1,000 years ago, it might have been true.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about what foods are best for blood sugar stabilization. You mentioned the protein, high quality protein, and higher fiber foods. Do you want to go into maybe more specific what that meal looks like and also how often somebody should be eating?
Yeah, definitely. So I would discourage, especially if it's something you've not done before, I would discourage any new mom to shy away from something like intermittent fasting, right? That for that moment, for most people, is going to create a stress that's just not useful on the body.
Especially if she's breastfeeding.
Especially if she's breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So unless you've been doing it for years and you're like, this just works and feels good for me. And even then I might be encouraging you to reconsider, especially if you're feeling a little more hormonal. Maybe this is a time to take a pause from that approach and you can revisit it in, 6 months or something like that.
Right.
But for that period, I would encourage a more regular, first to speak to cadence, right? 4 meals, 3 meals, 2 snacks, kind of every 3 to 4 hours, fueling your body in the way of what that might look like. In the morning, I would encourage something that's maybe a little bit more bent towards protein and fat. A couple of eggs with some avocado. But, if you need more calories than that, no problem. Throw in some, multi-grain toast. A lot of the people who I work with do benefit from keeping gluten to a minimum. So I'm not saying that's true for everyone, but if that is true for you, ensuring it's, a gluten-free option, great. But making sure you have that protein and healthy fat to go with it. A snack might be something as simple as knowing that you're probably juggling many things at once. Oatmeal that you just add water to, right? A high quality oatmeal, Purely Elizabeth, right there. They have a few options that have a little extra protein added to it. Just add water, stir it up, you're ready to go. There's a brand called, I think you say it Kia. It's QI''A. They've got single serving packets, but of course you can make your own oatmeal and just have it in the fridge ready to go too. Again, that's a great opportunity. Stir in some flax meal, get those plant-based omegas and a little healthy fat in there. Great. For actual meals, some things I think about are bean-based pastas, right? Bean-based pastas are going to give you a little more fiber. They're going to give you some protein. And gluten-free, exactly. The other nice thing about that fiber is it's going to support your detox pathways, which ties back to benefiting your hormonal balance, right? So there's another real easy push for, okay, more fiber. Great. For those of you who do consume animal-based products, you could throw in some already cooked gluten-free turkey meatballs, right? You can get those things ready to go. A nice, clean marinara with that. Super, just looking for easy, quick solves for the moment, right? And then, if you're, for your dinners, doing things like black rice. I'm a huge fan of black rice, right? Because black rice has more fiber than brown and white. And it also has the same antioxidants that give blueberries their color, gives black rice its color. So you're getting some nice antioxidants with that.
I didn't know that. I just learned something new.
Isn't that a fun one? I'm like, I want to start a national campaign for black rice. And it's so good.
It is tasty.
Oh, it's delicious. It is so good. So that's a nice one. And for people who are looking for quick grab solutions, you can get those things already made. You can get them in packets off of Amazon where they're cooked and ready to go. And then of course, I'm always going to be a fan of lots and lots of vegetables. Any way you can get colorful vegetables in your world, I'm going to be a champion for that. And those healthy fats, right? Your avocado and guacamole, that's a great snack, right? Chips and guacamole, great. Bean chips, that's another nice little, way to get more fiber and protein and the yummy salty crunch in there also. With proteins that are, I'm always trying to work with the reality of the person in front of me. And a lot of the people who I work with are super busy. So getting, wild caught canned salmon can be a nice solution for a quick and easy lunch with some of those other goodies.
That's great. And it is, I think the other thing for success is a little bit of meal prep. So really also maybe on a Sunday, thinking what am I doing for the rest of the week, especially if it's at lunch in the middle of the workday, but even breakfast and dinner can be busy. Or if you're a new mom and you're still home with your child, you're not necessarily cooking a lot of meals, and you also aren't going to run to the grocery store every day. So having that plan of what are you going to eat and having it, ready to go is so helpful.
Definitely. And when it comes to grocery shopping, I am such a fan of outsourcing that. That's my thing, right? I love having someone deliver my groceries. And what it does for me is it makes me plan in the moment, right? It makes me think, if they're going to deliver my groceries, I'm thinking about this week and what are we eating and what are we eating when. And so it becomes, two birds with one stone. I not only have my groceries in my house, but I've also planned in the process. So, that's just for me, that's worked really well. But also looking at the cadence of your life and what works well for your prep schedule, right? Some people absolutely adore the let's prep everything on Sunday. I was talking to a woman the other day who her kids are, her kids are, now in school and everything like that, but she works outside of the home. And one of the things she saw for herself was, initially she was, when we started working together, she would get home from work and have nothing prepared. And so it was like, oh my gosh, what's in the freezer? What are we eating? Right. And then over time, she really saw that it wasn't going to work for her to food prep before dinner. Like, things just come up at work. You're running on, on the go. And so what she came up with was every night she food preps for the next day. And that really set her up for success. And she was also saying, she's like, and then I get home from work and I feel like the fairy godmother has been in my house when really it was just me the night before. Right?
That's amazing. And even when your kids are older, you can have them help with food prep.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Wow, this is really amazing and helpful information. I think, it's exciting for women to know that this is possible for them to feel better, to feel supported. I do want to mention another thing that I think is really important for this postpartum woman is getting sleep, right? And we know sleep deprivation is such a big thing. But if you're getting support either from a partner or a postpartum doula or somebody you're bringing into your home, it's still going to give you a little more, even a couple of extra hours a night or day of sleep, in that 24-hour period, which is going to be essential for your mood and your hormones.
Absolutely. You couldn't be more spot on with that, right? It's so, I find it so exciting, all of the research that's coming out on sleep and the true magic it is for our health. When we sleep, it is when our brain takes out the trash. And that helps our body, our neurons, the nerves in our brain, right, produce neurotransmitters that actually work well, right? So you are totally spot on to the extent that, you ladies can get sleep. Take every last second you can.
Do what you can. It's obviously not going to be a normal 8-hour a night straight through quantity in the beginning, right? It's just that's not possible. But you're going to want to take naps during the day. You want to sleep when the baby sleeps whenever possible. And if the baby's a little fussier, needs a little more, hands-on support, you get another set of hands to help with that because it's just not possible for us to do it all by ourselves. And there's no shame in, recruiting the village and getting that help from beyond yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. Definitely.
All right. Well, Dr. Jessie, do you have any last thoughts you want to share with the audience?
I don't think so. It's so great to be at this moment in time where women really are stepping into and forging a new path forward that is based in wisdom and collaboration and creating that not just for themselves but for the future generations to come. So it's been such a pleasure to be with you, Dr. Laura, and your audience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.